All right. Hello, hello, Erin. Hi, Sarah. Welcome, welcome. I know we'll probably have a few people joining, more people joining. In the meantime, we will get started. Erin, I am so honored you're here today. So very honored. And I'm honored to call you my friend and fellow mother, fellow herbalist. And today, excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. Today, I'm excited to hear more of your story because, as much as I know your story, I don't think I know your story. And that's why we're here today. So, I would love to have you share your own origin story, but I know you well enough to know you will not go into deep detail unless I really ask.
You
that,
do know me, Laura.
that Gemini side of you, which is so loving, so a little protective. So I'm going to ask the details that are necessary for our wonderful herbal product slash practitioner group here. So I would love to hear about your upbringing first, which I know is extremely important to your story of where you are now. And I'm sure there's some variability in that of how you've come here, and it may have not been a linear journey, as none of our journeys are linear. But I would just love to hear about the way you were brought up, where you were brought up, and how that informs some of the work you're doing today.
Sure. Thank you, Laura, for having me. As a Gemini, I do love to chat, so this will be fun today. And here with holistic business folk, really wanting to share story and have conversation that brings value to each of you who are here. So that's my intention as we get into it. And my upbringing, Laura, we're going back further than I thought. Okay, let me think about this. So I grew up in Sacramento, South Sacramento. Anybody else here from like Sacramento, Central Valley? Just the videos on. Laura, I know you are. Okay. Um, and so a little bit urban. And yet I did grow up largely at my grandma's house. So my mom's mom, Masako, and she grew up as a farm laborer from like 5 years old. She was working the farms with her siblings, Japanese American family in what is now Mountain View in the peninsula. So she always had a garden and yeah, a lot of the Asian Japanese culture I grew up with was in the home, in the kitchen, in the garden. It wasn't something I led with. It was just one of those, it was just daily life, right? So now full circle that a lot of my work is around Asian American herbalism and kind of identity, ancestral medicine. That's more of a new flavor in my practice. So I just want to start there. So, oh, oh,
Can I help? We're,
sorry.
we're all still here. You're muted now, Erin. Okay, that's okay.
Sorry, I think I got somebody else's
Oh,
call in my AirPod.
yeah.
That was not mine. Um, so so growing up Sacramento and then let's fast forward to college, shall we? Well, it's a big jump. But I thought I was gonna go into law school. And I was studying social justice, critical race theory, intersectional feminism. That was really what I was interested in. First day in a cubicle at a law firm, I pretty much knew, oh, this actually isn't for me. And yet, even though I knew day one, I can't do this forever, I still worked in law firms for the next 6 to 7 years as I put myself through acupuncture school and grad school and built my practice. And so I'm sharing that piece because there tends to be, I think, for a lot of us, this bridge between employment and self-employment, right? It's not necessarily a tidy, like, I'm quitting my job and now I'm an entrepreneur. at least for myself, I found that that is still a bridge that I am continuing to cross. So, working part-time, waitressing, working as a paralegal, go through 3.5 years of graduate school, um, specifically for Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And after acupuncture school, we are all kind of thrown out into the world as entrepreneurs. There's not a lot of folks hiring acupuncturists, especially 15 years ago. Similar to there's not a lot of people hiring herbalists or product makers. So start that practice, and I would say within 3 years even. And I was really pretty hardline. I was practicing the way my teachers taught me. 3 or 4 years in, I realized everybody coming to see me kind of looks the same and kind of has the same problems and has a lot of money. And I really quickly, because of my studies and because of how I grew up, saw this disparity in like who I was serving, and it didn't sit right with me. So that from that need, from just organically seeing that, not even saying it to anybody else, but just seeing that is why I started teaching like low cost classes in the community, offering cost workshops, and started writing about the medicine and sharing online freely. And that helped me develop my voice, my specific flavor in the herbalism world, my perspective. And I was trucking along, and then COVID hits. And at this point, I didn't have a product line. Because I believe Laura was sharing that a lot of y'all have product lines or medicine makers. That's probably so. Um, when COVID hit, I was just an acupuncturist, energy worker, clinical herbalist, nothing online, not a thing. And then I had to really pivot. And in that pivot, I started a CPG, or consumer packaged good line of tea blends. And that's actually something now, 6 years later, that is one of my primary businesses. Um, and yeah, so here we are. So I don't know, that was
It was
a
perfect.
long story short.
No, I asked for the long story, so it was perfect. Thank you so much, Erin. You opened this up with talking about your grandmother, talking about the kitchen, talking about how ancestral Asian American herbalism is new for you. So
Mhm.
I would love for you to dive a little bit more into what that looks like for you and why it is new for you. And I'm assuming, I have a lot of assumptions here, but I'm assuming because you're formalizing an idea that is your upbringing, which is normalized in a child and in a home. And now it's sort of like TCM is a modern form of traditional indigenous medicine and an amalgam of all the Chinese medicine from all over China and really the Asian continent in many ways put into one system. And so, and that from the 70s, right? And like that's where people don't understand sometimes TCM is not old. It's old, but the way it is not new. So I'm very curious what I'm assuming that's what you mean by Asian American herbalism, the way that you understand it now as a current system that you're promoting.
Yeah. So going through acupuncture school, I entered acupuncture school as a trade school. When I entered acupuncture school, it was not a sense of like, oh, I'm getting in touch with my roots. I even made jokes to my friends, I was like, if I wanted to hang out with Asian people, I'd go hang out with my family, right? I didn't need to go to grad school to get in touch with that. Um, but I ended up in acupuncture school, and I can say confidently, identity never came up once in the 4 years I was there. Not at once. And I spoke at my school a few years ago to students, current students, and I asked them, like, oh, is this something now? I assumed, like, this has to be something now that is a hot topic. No, actually, it's still not. So it really was kind of this blending of like my interests before acupuncture school infusing into the studies. Um, and even the beginning of my practice, I wasn't talking about identity. It was really in COVID when I was pretty deeply depressed and watching my entire business kind of crumble, that I had time to sit in my backyard and think about like, what am I doing? What is my practice? How do I even, what's the language I use to describe myself and my work? And it was really quite simple of realizing, gosh, I really don't feel like an East-West herbalist. Like I don't like that binary. I don't like that those words. I really leaned on the words East-West herbalist because I felt like it was something that other people would understand. Really externalizing that. And in that process, realizing, how I identify as an Asian American person is actually how I work as well. Asian herbs, Asian herbalism, very traditional, a blend of really Chinese and Japanese, but in the context of modern day. And to Laura's point, that you were making about the difference between TCM or traditional Chinese medicine, which is less than 100 years old, versus more of a classical, spiritual, indigenous picture of what Chinese medicine is historically. Those are very different. And so Asian American herbalism I see as just kind of like an offshoot um, of all of that.
Thank you for talking about identity. We are diving deeper into brands and brand strategy next month. And I think I don't want to put capitalism as the forefront of the exploration of lineage. So I'm going to try to reframe brand strategy in a way that doesn't feel extractive or too selling, because I think that's where people's blocks can come up very easily, especially in a healing space. But as you're identifying your voice in the space of who you are and who people are looking for to find products or services or classes, this sitting and waiting and listening to yourself, I think, is that privilege that COVID gave you of what am I doing here? Who am I? What does this mean to me? Right. And that's unshakable, no
Mm,
matter who's showing up for you. But talking about identity, I was just teaching at the California School of Herbal Studies last week, and they're not talking about it either. It's a very easy thing to look over or look, yeah, I want to say jump over and look over when we're looking at a global society and a multicultural society, even as a trade like herbalism, TCM, acupuncture. And I think you and I have had many, many conversations about this, Erin, which is why I'm so grateful. You're a dear friend of mine, that this is the way you get to stay authentic for who you are, and you get to be healing people in a place where you have the most resonance with. And I think lineage is that for everyone,
hmm
truly. I think we are over the days of cultural appropriation, over the days of multicultural herbalism, which
hmm
is truly what our teachers have taught us. Every book is herbs from all over the world, and I have a library full of them. But I think the next wave of where people are at, they need to identify their multiple heritages and talk about them openly, and talk about the complexity, and talk about that it's not perfect, and talk about, like you were like, Asian American, like those are both your identities, and it's all of it, right? I think it's really beautiful, and it's out front, and people can resonate with that really deeply, and I think you do that really, really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. It and it is an interesting thing. It is also a messy process of identity and ancestral work. It's messy for myself, going through like a very formal program of Chinese medicine. I'm not Chinese, even though I'm Asian. It's not a perfect, tidy box that we can check, check, check. I don't think that's the purpose of it. But what I found really exciting is that strong systems of medicine, strong lineage like Chinese medicine can really help illuminate the herbal path for people of many different cultures, many different paths, whether that's like Japanese for me, or I have friends who say are like black herbalists. They're like, actually, this has helped me understand ginger in a way that it hasn't been written about before in this context. So,
Right. I love that. That's really beautiful.
mhm.
Let's dive a little bit into product. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions. These are seeding a lot of questions from our group here, but let's talk about product. So, you had an acupuncture clinic downtown Petaluma that you needed to close during COVID. And then you started your tea line, which is still running today. So I
Mhm.
would love you to take us on the arc of that tea journey of what you started with, what you know now, which is what you would do differently then. Everyone started something brand new within 3 weeks at COVID time, right? One of well, at least two of you know here that I moved an in-person class online within 3 weeks. Like it just happens, right? These things happen. But that quickness, which is great for any entrepreneur knowing that they have resilience and they know they can pivot, doesn't necessarily make the best long-term decision sometimes because it's a scarcity, it's a necessity, it's an urgency conversation. So I am actually curious what that tea line looked like then and then where you are today with your tea line.
Sure. The pivot with the T line, what happened was is previous, right before COVID, was I was running seasonal wellness workshops. So summer wellness workshop. I was like, oh, I should make a seasonal tea blend for this workshop. Um, and so I had seasonal tea blends that I'd already made for other purposes. And so it really lent itself well to like a tea line. And one of the pitfalls, I think, looking back was um, just because I was self-employed and I was an entrepreneur, being a clinician, very different from being somebody who owns a CPG, like a product line. And I think looking back, I was like, oh, business, business, without really realizing, oh, I need to actually educate myself on the structure and all of the nuances of moving into a completely different business. Um, the hindsight, right? So I just kind of went for it. And after things kind of started picking up a little bit slowly, but picking up a bit, I realized, oh, I need like a commercial kitchen. And so looking into that and figuring out, okay, well, I'm not a cottage operation. And, I was kind of somewhere in the middle. So for Sonoma County, where I'm at right now, there was a loophole that I found just through talking with fellow makers, and it was a health permit for basically being in a commissary kitchen. And it's actually still what I'm using today. I rent commercial kitchen from a restaurant owner, and I have a health license that works in my county for the time being, and I've just been kind of going baby steps, which has worked well. Um, One of the other, I don't say pitfalls, but I'd say something else that now looking back, I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't on paper what somebody with an MBA would have done, is I had to have every tea blend that I'd ever made. I had like 12 SKUs immediately because they're all my babies and they're all so important. And right, we need a sleep tea and we need this tea and we need energy and we need a like, right? Because as a creative entrepreneur, I was like, I had this has a full expression as opposed to being more business minded of like, what's the star product? What's the lead product? Like that terminology and that perspective is still quite new to me. Um, so that's been a part of the process. And I think final note for now on that is 5, 6 years in, I'm realizing how important time is with having a product line, right? Clinician, I want to get patients now. I need people in the door. Actually, with a product line, it really is the long game of like brand recognition, name recognition, and just repeat customers and being out in the community in a way where I'm seeing now that just time is a part of the game.
Thank you for that. I think it's really interesting going from practitioner to tea line. That's really common for folks because they, especially a lot of practitioners, they realize they start selling the same products or creating the same products for a lot of their customers. And then they're like, oh, I'll just package this up instead of have to custom make it every time for menopause or PMS or just basic symptoms, sleep, nervines, etc. So it makes sense that products would come out of that. And I've seen people go product first and then slowly build up their brand to eventually start seeing clients or do retreats or education. I'm curious with your journey as a practitioner, an already established brand, Herb Folk was your brand for your acupuncture clinic, and then moved into teas. What did you see that helped you the most with the sale of those teas? And it might not have been during those sales that you noticed helped the most. It might have been what you did before, what kind of branding, messaging you had before. I am curious about, and I'll make this a little vague, but potentially the workshops or the way you talked about them or some of your marketing strategies or whatever when you started pivoting, what you found that worked well for you in particular.
Yeah. You know, timing is a funny thing, I will say. So not all of this is necessarily relevant for this moment in time, but this was 2020, 2019, 2021, and social media was very different then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
people can make whole businesses on Instagram.
right. And in even 2019, 2021, when I was speaking about Chinese medicine, like on Instagram, for example, that was kind of rare. I don't know if anybody that's on video remembers that, but like it was like, wow, goji berries. I'm being silly, but truly, like talking about chi was kind of surprising. And now if I go on Instagram, which I actually am not really currently on, every other post is like, here's 20 foods for your blood and your chi and your yin. And so the landscape has changed. But what I'll say is, and I think this is evergreen, is just honing voice and perspective and just naming what what's true for me and what's relevant for me. It's like so specific that it becomes universal. And that's really all the marketing that I did.
Mhm.
Um,
You primarily did marketing through Instagram.
Through Instagram, yep,
Hmm.
and
And then,
sharing a story versus like, here's a product.
yeah, so you did the storytelling piece, and
Yeah,
then products and the sales came through those posts primarily.
yeah.
How are you doing sales now versus 2020, 2021? How has that changed for you?
That's changed in that, and it's pretty local in the Bay Area, is that I am selling a lot of tea to other shops.
Okay. So you're doing business to business now instead of primarily direct to customer.
It's more business to business.
Mhm.
And truth be told, between us, between us and YouTube, um, part of that is just because I personally didn't want to keep up with social media. It was a decision I made in the last few years where I decided to start not divesting, like making a big political statement by it, but my heart and spirit couldn't handle being on social media, and the pace that that was demanding. And I don't have a team, it is just me.
Yeah.
So because of that, just allowing like wholesale accounts or business to business to grow. Um, and word of mouth. And then as I continue to teach too, I think that's a part of the marketing as well.
So you do have those direct to customer sales when you're teaching, so people will buy from you directly. And
Hmm.
then you primarily do business to business, which we've talked about finances a lot in this group. So that's 50% off. You get 50% less money when you go business to
True.
business. Yes. So I am curious how many accounts you have now. for your
Hmm.
business sales?
So like maybe 10 active, maybe 20 total. I, again, coming in this as a clinician, I'm not the best with follow through. So I don't have a lot to say as far as like building, a lot of the growth I've had has been organic. Um,
I think that's okay.
yeah,
I think
so
that's
I'll
being
say
honest
that.
and authentic from who you are.
Yeah.
But I ask these questions because entrepreneurship should fit into your life, right? It should be an expression of you as an individual. And if something doesn't work, then don't do that thing. Like you said, I don't want to be on social media. How do I still sell product? Oh, I go business to business. Then I can nurture that relationship with that and do trainings with that company that is selling my product, and they get to be the salespeople. And that's what I value, is that relationship, the direct relationship. That is actually a very important decision that you made, which is self-care in that
Yeah.
process, without trying to be something that you're not, and you're really just really hating your job. Which is stressful if you don't want to be on. I mean, social media is stressful. We all know that. We're all on that page. Sometimes more stressful than others. Some people really love it. They really generate a lot of revenue from that, or a lot of leads. It's
Yeah.
a big strategy for a lot of folks. But I'm really grateful for your honesty, because it's really important for everyone to be honest in that journey when building something from scratch.
Hmm. And I will say on that tip, I've looked at other people's feeds and thought, oh, they must have a team. They must have, you make assumptions when we look at somebody else's feed. I've also had people come to me and say, like, how do you get all of this amazing photography? Like, how do you do it? And the few posts that they're looking at, and I'll tell them, keep it real. I'm like, oh, those are stock images. And I'm just like, oh, what? Like so.
Like, I find those for free online. They're made by a professional photographer who sold them to someplace, and I got them for free. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. There's
So,
a lot available for creators and entrepreneurs now that builds that brand. I know you're very protective of your brand. You're very protective of your image. You're very specific on how you want it to be in the world. And I think you're a great example of sharing this, which is like, you can still have a very polished brand, which is your voice, which is your palette, which is your way you want to be perceived in the world, which is the way people perceive you, and still do it on your own. Just be really choosy and be really specific on what you're choosing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I am at peace now. Took me a little while, but I'm at peace now with being slow.
Mm.
Slow growth, slow response, slow, slow everything. And I told this to a friend, I was like, gosh, like I feel so bad. I'm not like the most responsive person. And it was a really just off the cuff remark, but it set me free. They were like, yeah, but that's what people expect because that's the expectation you're putting forward. And yeah, I'm not going to answer my DMs on Instagram regularly. And um, so I think that's an important piece for all of us because there's so many ways that our attention can be drawn and used up and called for. Um, but it's really about consent and how we're wanting to participate as
Yeah.
business owners.
I would love to give that some flavor and some color also. You're a mother. You have two children, beautiful, gorgeous children who I love. And you also have a part-time job doing work. So just the color and that flavor is, you're probably not needing 5 clients a day, a certain percentage of sales to survive right now. And I'm just assuming that's true for you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what percentage of your income or your revenue monthly comes from, or even if you pay yourself at all, comes from practice, workshops, and product? Because we haven't talked about your workshops yet either.
Sure. I would say, oh, that's tricky because it is changing a lot. So what I'll say
Okay.
is when I was just doing clinical work, um, half of our household income was for my acupuncture work. And when I've taught classes before and people were talking about different ways you can be an herbalist, I like to say, from my experience, if you don't have money backing you, right? Clinical work is a really quick way to make money, right? Seeing people, filling a need, service. Um, the product line piece does require funding. I've funded mine through my other jobs. So not through investors, not through loans, through my labor in other ways. Um, so what I want to say about that is the last few years, I was really tough on myself of realizing I have so many different jobs, writing, education, teaching on my own platform and teaching for others, direct to consumer product sales from my Shopify site, business to business wholesale sales, which are coming in via email. So many different things. I realized if I just had one job, right, then I'd be wildly successful. I'd just consolidate my energy. And so I was like, I'm just going to sell tea. And I was doing markets a few years ago. I was like, I'm just going to do tea. And it actually didn't really work for me. And I don't know if other people have had this experience, but I realized that part of what works for me is that I have a lot of different irons in the fire. So it is hard to say, like, oh, I'm making this percentage of money because it's a bit feast or famine. When I run a big class, I make some money and then that sustains us for a few months, and then some months I might have a bunch of wholesale orders come in and then so it's different and the final piece, because of that hustle that I've been in since I've stopped clinical, since COVID, is it got so stressful that last year I decided to take on part-time employment. So going back to that bridge of employment and self-employment. And it's for a nonprofit. They do events, political work, festivals around for the Asian community in the North Bay. So related to what I do and my heart. But having that paycheck and that income again for the first time in 20 years that I've been employed has been so liberating. It's taken the pressure off of having to make a product line or a tea line, everything, right? Paying the bills, every success and failure becoming so personal. It's taken that off the table. And yeah, it's been such a positive thing.
Thank you for sharing those layers of reality with this group and with me. I second that. Working with Dr. Weil's organization, Beneficial Plant Research Association, which is part-time for me for the last year and a half, has been so helpful for me to be able to find a baseline where I can do my other work. And it's actually seeded a lot of my other work and my current work that I'm really excited about today. But it is an essential piece for anyone to be able to know they can do it. But it was my first job I've ever had in 20 years.
I will say also, Laura, and I don't know if you felt if it resonates with you, having now working for someone else or another organization, it's made me even appreciate more my own brand and having something that I am slowly building, but that is still mine. And it's all about perspective. So it's been good in multiple ways.
Yeah, I feel the same. And I can say this with true authority is that entrepreneurship makes you any of you, a more valuable employee.
Yeah.
And because you're a self-starter, you can creatively think, you can build something that people are generally waiting for other people to build. It's an asset in any organization. You might not fit in one box for that reason, which can be hard, but some people call us generalists, which is actually very, very, very good for any company. So for those of you that are looking at work outside of entrepreneurship as well, just to remember there's value in what you're doing as an entrepreneur also in that sphere of jobs, which is always surprising to me
Mhm.
because I haven't had to have a job until I closed down Scarlet Sage, and then one presented itself to me. But I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, yeah, good. I'm curious to hear about teaching for you. So
Mm.
that's how you and I met, was
Mhm.
through you coming and teaching with verse.
Mhm.
I'm very curious about what that looks like for you now and how that arc has grown.
Yeah. So teaching, mm, and something I didn't share, but the part of the first time I taught was teaching yoga, which is how I went from law school to acupuncture school, is when I was kind of questioning everything. All I knew is that I was at that point was obsessed with yoga. So one thing is like, that I knew to be so true for myself. And so I started teaching yoga, really enjoyed that. And then fast forward, grad school, start teaching just community classes on Chinese medicine. And the question, I think still to this day, but that I always carry when I create a class is, um, what's something that I'd be willing to go to? Right? Not something like, what's the best information for this season that people are really gonna like? It's, we're all busy. To get me out of my house, even if it's free, doesn't mean, regardless, right? It's the time. That's the resource. What is something so intriguing that I would have to go? So that's always kind of the underpinning of when I offer something. So it started with seasonal wellness back when that was like not everywhere and ubiquitous. Of course, infusing the Chinese medicine piece in because that's my training. But I will say until COVID, so the first 2, 3 years I was teaching seasonal wellness classes, I I don't even, I wasn't talking about qi. I wasn't really talking about Chinese medicine too much because I didn't think it was something, again, assuming what do other people want? I was like, I don't think people want that or understand it. And so my journey of teaching is coming forward with like, actually, this isn't like a side thing for me. Like, this is everything. Like, I never went to a Western herbalism school. All of my training is in Chinese and Japanese herbalism. Um, so my journey has been just stepping into that more and more of like, oh, this is what the truth is. This is what I have to offer. Um, and what I've found, and this has been so beautiful, is that we can all understand what she is. We can all understand what energy is. You don't need a graduate school degree to understand what blood and fluids are. And so just really leaning into that has been fantastic. And I can't, there is for me there without teaching, there is no product line, period. They're hand in hand.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think one of the questions that was asked to Rebecca Altman, who was here a couple weeks ago, about product line and how to market it was specifically about that, right? Our member asked, she was concerned about how it was going to be perceived, right? I think that's the most common place for all of us because we're wired to belong. We're wired to blend in. We're wired to not want to be othered and to step forward knowing that our truth and our authenticity, the thing we're even nerding about, because there's passion behind it, because we love it, there will be people interested in it. And keep doing it, and those people will keep finding you.
Mhm.
And that's a hard lesson. You're not going to die. That's a hard lesson to learn of like, oh, I'm not going to be othered. I'm actually going to be embraced. And this is the time, timing wise, this is the time to be your niche, whatever your niche is, to be able to be truly in that confident place. And I think that's the thing that can take time is building that confidence that you are speaking your truth while people are also following you,
Mm.
not
Hmm.
making it too vague.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It is a funny line of what to share, how to share it, the personal things that we share, but hopefully because they're relevant
I
to.
think I'd like to add to that teaching thing too, and I'm curious what you think about this. I often, when I do a public class, I teach what I want to teach. I teach what I enjoy and I have fun teaching. Because in my clinical work, I teach the liver and cardiovascular and business, but in public, I'm teaching like tea blending classes, like very basic, and people love those classes. But I really enjoy teaching them as well. And I think sometimes it takes time to just figure out what is the perfect Venn diagram of what people want and what you really enjoy. And that's where the money is to be made. And you're not sacrificing your values or your voice in order for that thing to be achieved.
Mhm. Mhm. I've also found as like a creative entrepreneur, in the last year, I've been getting more and more clear on knowing that for me, not everything is a financial endeavor. Not everything I do is just to make money. And that comes from a deep source of privilege, but also really trying to unbraid like, well, what am I doing that is for income? And what am I doing because I can't imagine my life without it? And what I realized in that is the T line, all of those babies that I can't let go of any of them. Like to me, that yes, it is a business and it is I'm making money, but that's really not the end goal for me. Like that existing is what's important for me. And so I don't know if that resonates for other people, but just the kind of like our work doesn't have to be everything in our lives. Like how do we determine kind of where we emphasize different things, whether that's work, hobbies, maybe a little dirty word in entrepreneurship, right? Like I don't see my business as a hobby, but um, things that can take up more of kind of like a personal, spiritual space.
I love that. I think it's really important for us to be aware is what we're desiring to be monetized, like you were saying, what shouldn't be monetized, and that is only you can decide what shouldn't,
Of
right? There's
course.
no moral high ground. What maybe there is a moral high ground what to be monetized, but
I
almost
don't know.
anything can be monetized at this point in capitalism. But you have to decide, right? And I agree with you. I agree deeply that there are certain parts of my life that I need a certain amount of money to survive and to be, you know, an equal member of the household that I run,
Right.
my children and with my wife. But when it comes to also what I do set aside time for volunteer work, for further education, for sliding scale clinicians, because it's so valuable to my soul. It's what I want to do with my time, but I have to do it a smaller portion of my time because I do not have a trust fund, because I do not have generational wealth. I can't
Right.
rely on that for my well-being.
That's
So
so real, Laura.
and some people do, and I'm all for them. Like volunteer 100% their time, please. Donate to funds, donate to charities, buy good products from people. And I know very wealthy people that do that. And I'm really impressed with those people that have that ability to keep money flowing to the creators and healers in the world. But yeah, there's that value. And I think where the business comes in, which is really the strategy and the funding and the financials, has to be where you're putting the energy on making an income, so to speak. And like you said with your T line, it's not the thing that's going to pay your bills every month necessarily, but it's the thing that pays for itself ideally enough and gives you a little bit of extra to keep growing it and having it in the world. I think that's a beautiful thing. And it goes back to this idea that you're building the business you want to have, because your life is the valuable thing here, not just the business, like you said. Yeah,
Right.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. I'm curious if you can share a little bit about your book that you published,
Mhm.
and then what future writings are coming from Miss Erin Masako Wilkins. But
Ooh.
you were um, found on Instagram by a publisher, and I'm curious if you can share about that journey.
Sure. And as you say that, because that is true, that I was cold called by an editor to write this book. But it actually now, as I think about it, like I'm thinking aloud altogether, is it goes back to teaching, actually. Um, I was teaching with somebody, and that person was very savvy, and they had connected with an author, and that author kind of gave the editor like a heads up, like, hey, look at this is going on over here. These classes are going on over here. And then when the editor went onto my Instagram page, which I did not have a big following, she was the first to say it. She's like, you actually don't have a very, I think I had 8,000 followers. She was like, you don't really have a following, but we're looking to hire diverse voices in wellness. And she saw a different class that I had taught for CIIS in San Francisco on mental health and Chinese medicine. And she was like, that piqued her interest. Um, and so again, the teaching, the sharing and community is a through line here. And also the sharing freely. I had at that point been making zines, seasonal zines, not to make money, please. Nobody's retiring on $12 zines that they're hand stapling. But it was one of those creative passions where I was like, I just did it for my own pleasure. Like I just wanted these zines to exist. And so and this editor in New York is like, would you be interested in writing a book on Asian American herbalism? I was like, why, yes. And I have zines. Like looking back, like I'm laughing at myself because I was so naive to what it would take to write a book. I'm like, oh, yes, let me send you my zines. So um, so yeah, so that's the silly inside scoop of it all. But the seriousness is that this is a legit publisher, and they gave me a year and a decent yet small advance to not only write the book, but also hire photography, illustration, pay them out of my advance. So I basically made nothing, right? I mean, financially from the book. And project manage a book within a year. Had a health crisis during that time. I had to ask for, because that I had to ask for, how do you say, like a few more months.
Yeah,
And it was, it was a humbling process. But what I'll say is, I have so much respect for people that self-publish because the thing that got me over the finish line with this book was the shame of failure was the fact that this publisher, this editor was like, it's due in 3 months. Otherwise, it was like birthing a child. I don't know how I would have done it without just the natural desire to not, right? Like to not produce. So, yeah, and it, I never thought I would write another book, but I am getting the itch again, Laura. As you ask, what are you writing about? I'm getting the itch, as creatives do, to create again.
it's true. Well, I love your book very, very much. And I think if anyone here doesn't have it, you should buy it today. Asian American Herbalism.
Thank you.
It is so beautifully put together. You've done such an amazing job. I don't think people actually realize how hard it is to write a book and to manage the book and how little money people actually make on books, but it's more of a marketing tool and a brand building tool and a name recognition tool than it is a money maker unless you're a New York Times bestseller and you have multiple bestsellers coming out. Like that's a very rare experience. And we obviously know who those people already are because you've already purchased their books and they're famous people at this point. But again, with the amount of books that are out there in the world, this is not a very big money endeavor than it
Mhm.
is more of a passion in sharing in your community.
Truly, truly, truly. Um, and it also, as an entrepreneur, has been an interesting experience because when a book is done, a zine or a book, whatever it is, it's done. Yeah, a little book tour, but really, I think the promotions the publisher put into this were like, it was like 30 days, like the on to the next round of books, like crank them out. This is a publishing machine. The book's done. And as an entrepreneur, everything is generally like hard forever. That dire and horrible to say, Laura. Right? Like always selling, always checking in on accounts, always what sourcing, all like there's always something more in running businesses. And yet the book was so final. It was a different experience in that regard.
I'm sure, because you're like, no, I can't edit it. I wish I wouldn't have. Like, I'm sure that there's like, you can update a blog all day long. You can update a website all day long. You cannot update a book. Well, you can if they're willing to publish a second edition at some point. But yeah, that's real. That's very real. Thank you for sharing all of that. I would love to open it up for questions from our lovely audience here and our members. So feel free to unmute or raise your hand to ask Erin. Thank you so much, Erin, for being here.
Thank you.
I'll ask my question I always ask. Well, first I'd just like to say thank you. And I had a little scarcity moment because I'm writing a seasonal wellness program right now, and that's my whole thing. And I'm like, oh, she thinks it's kind of old hat, but I know that's not true. I know that's not true, but my question for you is, what would you do differently based on what you know now?
Mm. Amy, thank you. I was gonna, you did exactly what I was hoping is like share a little something a bit personal so that we have something to riff on together. And if you wouldn't mind getting even more specific on what would I do differently in what regard, just so I can kind of get right to what you're curious about.
Well, I think you have many different sort of businesses. And obviously, I think, I'm of an age where you get to a point and you look back on your paths and you're like, oh, it actually all happened in perfect alignment. I did this and that led to that. And I learned that, like, thankfully I went to law school and sat in a cubicle and realized that's not what I need and all that kind of stuff. But I think, like, for me, in a phase of trying to develop the business and do all the little things and all the big things, I guess I would be looking for maybe pitfalls or traps that sunk my energy or took time unnecessarily or even money away from my process. Just sort of from an efficiency standpoint, I guess, of like how maybe would you take steps that are different to prevent maybe some of the pitfalls that you had to learn the hard way, I guess would be more the
Okay,
question.
cool. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, before I speak to that though, I just want to speak to the seasonal wellness piece. Um, because it was so real how you shared it. It's like, wait, is this old? Is this old? Yes, it is old. Actually, the oldest records of Chinese medicine from 3,000 years ago, they're writing about seasonal wellness and about how the seasons and the weather affect our health. So I just want to say it's been done. It continues to be done. And I think it's still just as relevant today as it's been for thousands of years. So keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank
Just
you. Thank you for that.
want to, yeah, address that first. And then the efficiency piece, honestly, I am still trying to answer that question for myself. Laura's laughing. Like, please tell me what you think too, because I wish there was a more efficient piece. I am what I'm coming to now, as Laura knows, because we're friends and we've talked about this, is I'm finally focusing in on a star product, which for me is a heirloom green tea powder. Similar to matcha, but it's actually much less delicate, less finicky, more buttery and delicious, all the things. So I'm finally kind of doing what the MBA say you're supposed to do is have the product. That's the one thing, you know. Um, but what else would I? It's hard to say, you know, the one other thing, and I'm sure this is for other people as well, is because my whole business world crumbled with COVID, there's kind of almost like this like moment where everything fell apart. Um, And so it's hard to like tether out like what was scramble and survival and pivot and what was like genius. Like I don't know. Like it's hard because that just happened 5, 6 years ago. Final piece about that is, and this happened, I just in the last 6 months set up like a desk in my home that's just for me. And I hadn't had that since I shut down the businesses in 2020. And that's been a game changer. So I would say having a space, whatever it is, a little like it's not even my office alone, right? I share it with my husband. Like having a space that's dedicated to your work, specifically your entrepreneurial work. Almost like an altar, but like it doesn't need crystals. Like truly saying like, "Oh, I'm actually claiming this." For me, I think has been probably the best thing this year. Okay, let's do
Thank you.
it.
I love that so much. Erin, I always say I have like a B minus in organization, but an A plus in getting shit done. So it's like it's really interesting thinking about creative people. If you're an
You.
imaginary
Yeah.
creative person, you're going to have a lot of ideas. And I think the way that we rely on tools is really important. So I would say for any of you that feel like Ami or like Erin or me, where it's like we have a lot of ideas and a lot of like ways we want to make the world a better place through our endeavors, which is truly all of us in this space. Rely on systems, rely on tools. Don't make it about you. Like it has nothing to do with you. You're actually a creative person. So like don't try to over organize yourself and then shame yourself into like being like rely on a calendar, rely on system and tools, rely on meetings once a week that you're meeting with someone to get shit done in real time. Like build out tools because they work for you, not because you're supposed to do them a certain way. And that's something I've had to learn in my life because I realized that I'm actually very good at my job as long as I'm getting deadlines on. So I'm building deadlines. So that works for me. Deadlines really work for me. Having meetings and working in real time with people one on one, like we're going to do financials together, really works well for me. Watching videos after they're done, I just never do it. Like I never. So I'm like, I'll listen to it on a walk instead. Like there's like hacks for my brain and how they work. And that's where, thank you for being so honest, Erin. I think don't give up who you are as a creative multi-threader, which I love the way that is. Some people are single threaders. They can only focus on one thing at a time. I'm assuming a lot of people who are multi-threaders like can think about all the things at the same time. Like rely on systems so you can still be you in that space. And if you don't know what the systems are, like put it in the chat, let someone help you try on things. And if they don't work, throw them out, try something else until you find the thing that just feels very easy.
Yeah. Oh, and Sarah just entered into the chat about ADHD.
Yep.
I think Sarah, you're speaking to you having ADHD, I assume, but I maybe it's abundantly clear or not that I also have ADHD, which I think is a like a special sauce for entrepreneurs. I think that's probably why I am an entrepreneur because it suits my brain. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to speak to that at all, but I just appreciate your share in the chat.
Sarah, you are muted. Mhm.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. My Zoom is not working today, so I wasn't sure if I could even speak because I'm just calling it on my phone. Yeah, I'm not diagnosed officially, but I'm just all over the place. And I really have found that if I put a timer on and set down, otherwise I will just float and have like 7,000 tabs open and be doing a million things and never getting anything done toward working on my business. In fact, today I was like, you have to get on this group that you joined and spent money on and come to one of those things. So that really is a tool that I use all the time, like put it for 15 minutes and like just force myself to settle in. And it's really been a challenge for me. I've been studying and practicing herbalism for 20 years and I've still not gotten a business launched because I'm just so all over the place. So I don't even know what I'm talking about now, but the buzzer thing or like the timer and just really being intentional about focusing in for a set amount of time. And then often I will actually extend my work past that once I've gotten like past the like, oh, let me get a perfect pencil and, all the little fussing. So anyway, that was my little take.
Thank you. I appreciate your sharing. Can I just riff on something Sarah just said? Is one of my best friends from acupuncture school. She moved states, and so her acupuncture license doesn't work in the state she's in, right? And so she's like, "What am I doing? I'm just like wasting away years here." Like she is doing work, but just not acupuncture. So we have this running joke, and what you shared made me think of it is like, as an herbalist, every year that goes by is a feather in our cap, even if we don't have a business card, right? Or a landing page. You've been an herbalist for 20 years. Like that speaks for itself. That matters, right? So,
Thank you. I really struggle with the imposter syndrome and feeling like if I don't have some giant business or I'm not doing XYZ, that I'm not a real herbalist. I have seen clients in the past and I do a lot of plant walks and, but I've never like hung up my shingle. So it has felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't have, this business under my belt. So thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, that's
I
just
love that, Erin. Thank you for sharing. And it's you too, Sarah. The thing that I'm hoping people can get out of this group, in addition to the insights from amazing entrepreneurs like you, Erin, is that sometimes the things holding us back is we think we have to do it in a particular way. But just inviting people over for a sliding scale practice, friends and family, with emails you have already in your inbox might be the easiest way to just get started, because the hardest part is just getting started. And then it becomes easier. It's like the timer, right? Put on that timer for 15 minutes and then you're going. Get a client or two and then you're going. It's the how do I set this up perfectly before I get it started is where actually people stop. And my hope is that these barriers will come down of just how do I get the first client? That's it. That's my only goal, is to get one client. And I don't care how much they pay me. So I'm trade or sliding scale, like it doesn't matter, because then that will build more people. It'll build your confidence more also, more than anything. And that word of mouth piece, like Erin said, that organic marketing, that is better than any ad, any social media post, anything. If people really love you, sometimes that privacy of not being available everywhere is more valuable to clients, because you're like this unknown person that doesn't do much social media. Like example, my therapist, my psychotherapist is in Bolinas, which is an hour and a half drive away from me. And she's been doing this for 40 years, doesn't have any advertising. You have to go to her house. And she's booked solid. And it takes me 5 hours for just one session with her that I do every other week. But it's because she's the real deal I go there, and she's word of mouth that I go there. So actually being the best clinician you can and asking for people to show up is probably the best thing that you could focus on outside of a website and a social media. And I know that's old school, but with this AI takeover that I'm sure all of you have seen, even more so in the last 48 hours, practitioners are never losing their jobs. Herbalists are never losing our jobs. Plant walks, in-person experiences,
Yep.
retreats. We are never, our jobs have become significantly more valuable now and really needed for people in crisis that are about to transition and lose their jobs and lose some of their worth in finances as well as their value in their jobs and what they've worked so hard for. And so we have to hold each other up to actually be present and be out there in the world and say, we are here to help. We're here to give plants. We are here to connect with nature. We are here to help heal. And so I just want to build that confidence up a little bit with you all here.
Can I riff on that
Thank
one? Sorry,
Please.
Sarah. Something I just want to share is just coming forward that I want to share is I no longer have a fear of public speaking because I've done so much of it. Yeah. So I used to sweat if I had to do some public speaking. And now that doesn't concern me. However, putting out a public offering, a class, a walk, one-on-one clinics, I still can get overwhelmed with imposter syndrome and anxiety. Nobody's going to come. Nobody cares. Every time, no level of success, no perfectly filled class has ever stopped that feeling of if I put this out in the public, it might kill me. It's still to this day. You too, Laura. Still to this day. So I just want to like get that out there. Like it's not the actual doing it, right? Like Sarah, you're saying like when like you love how you feel when you lead a plant walk. The doing is the genius and the magic, but that little bit of like I'm gonna put this out into the public feels like death for me every time.
Absolutely. Once I'm in the element, I'm fine. And I'm really not tech savvy, so the putting the invite together, getting the, all of that, dealing with exchange of money, if there's going to be a charge for a service, that's what freaks me out. And then I have a huge fear, which I need to work out in some other way, of accidentally hurting someone. Like I'm
Oh,
making pictures and I'm like, oh my God, what if this isn't right? So that's a whole nother thing, but that holds me back. But that fear piece, or the fear of being seen. I actually don't have a problem getting interest in things I'm doing. That's what scares me. Like, oh my God, there's 15 people coming or whatever. And I'm like,
yeah, it's so real.
Thank you for naming that as well, Sarah. Erin and I talk a lot about doing things wrong. Because as an herbalist, you're going to do some stuff wrong, especially because you're dealing with lineage, you're dealing with heritage, you're dealing with cultural appropriation, you're dealing with people's trauma, chronic illness, conspiracy theories, modern medicine, diagnoses, different opinions. You're dealing with all of that. And what I can hopefully give you, Sarah, as my gift is learn this. And I learned this from David Hoffman. I didn't learn it in the moment because that was 20 years ago when he was my clinical teacher, but it stayed with me and I hold on to it. He said in all of his classes, question everyone, especially me.
Hmm.
Do your own research. Go do your own homework. If you don't agree with me, don't agree with me. This is what I know. I'm not perfect, but I'm going to share with you what I know. And then learn how to apologize. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. And Michael Moore did this really well, where he was teaching about black cohosh. He was like, oh, black cohosh is the phytoestrogen. Actually, no, wait, there's a clinical trial that says it's not a phytoestrogen. It's very specific for inflammation. Wait, no, it's not just specific for inflammation. We're looking at it for arthritic conditions, but I'm not sure. Actually, does anyone know what black cohosh does? He's a student. We're all students also. And I think if we can present ourselves as humble students while we're saying, but we also have experience, and that's why you're here, in many ways that I'm going to mess up becomes part of the teaching moment. And so whatever I can do to support that kind of embodying that we're not supposed to know everything. And therefore, if we do accidentally hurt people, which I have done many, many times, I have hurt people unintentionally that I can repair really well. And now I'm even learning if people are like, I was hurt by you, I can say, please share your experience. And I will also own what I can own and also not own what I don't own. because some of this is just you.
Hmm.
And I'll let you own that, and I will be kind and generous and whatever I can. But I'm also not going to heal your childhood wounds, right? I mean, we're holding all of these things. And I think we're in a field where all of these things come up. And being stronger, being a matriarch, holding space for all the things that come up with clear boundaries is our job and our journey as healers and herbalists and teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Sarah and Erin. What other questions are coming up today for Erin? Erin, I have another question since other people are thinking. You were talking about Ocha, your new matcha green tea powder company. And you and I have talked quite a bit about this. Where are you with that? And can you share a little bit about how you named that brand?
Sure, sure. And actually, this will go into Lexi added a
Oh,
question in the
oh,
chat
source herbs. Perfect.
for
Thank you.
herbs,
Great.
which let me speak about the Ocha piece because that's relevant, Lexi. And I'm curious if you want to speak to or add into the chat if there's any nuance about sourcing herbs or anything experience you've had specifically with sourcing herbs that you're just kind of processing.
I'm growing a lot of herbs right now, and it's a lot of work. But the herbs that I can't grow, I will source from like Mountain Rose or Oshala or whatever. So just wondering what resources you had.
Yes. Okay. I'll actually start there and then we'll go into the Ocha piece because I think they're both relevant to the convo. So I for a moment was growing herbs, invested in some dehydrators, was like doing it. And Lexi, to your point, it is so much work. I'm like, oh, right. That's why we are in community where we don't have to grow everything ourselves. Like, but I went through the process. Some of us have to learn the hard way. I don't know if anybody else out there is one of those too, or I'm like, I have to do it the hard way first. And so I have even more appreciation for places like Oshala and Mountain Rose. I source from those places too. And it really does feel like if you're not going to do it yourself, this is the next best thing. Pacific Botanicals, I'll source from them, although I'm noticing that they're importing more herbs than they did previously.
Because
Um,
they sold to Herb Farm, and Herb Farm is using the majority of their plants in their products.
thank you, Laura. Laura is so connected, y'all. This is, of course, Laura knows what's up with that.
I definitely know a lot about herb companies these days. Yes.
And then there's always, well, I'm in the Bay Area, so of course there's a lot of like herb associations and smaller scale farmers and growers on the West Coast, I'm sure across the country, but definitely the West Coast. So that for sure. Um, and having a tea line, specifically, Lexi, do you do tea or what do you do other topicals or what is your product?
Yeah, I do everything. I even do tinctures, even though technically my license isn't for them. I still offer them and sell them to people and make them. But I forage and grow like probably like 75% of the herbs that I use, other than like ginger, or I haven't been able to grow like astragalus, so stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think a few things come forward as you share that. Thank you for sharing. One is that that takes a lot of community building and connection, right? Like my most beloved tea blend is has Tulsi from Oshala, and I recently tried to order and they're like, "Oh, we're not harvesting until July." It's April, y'all. I'm like, "Oh my God." So Maybe I'm just sharing problems versus solutions right now, but that just sourcing is tricky. I would say with where the world's going, especially in the last few years in AI and everything is consolidated and corporate and having products where you are growing 70% or whatever the percentage is like gold. Like if you're able to keep that up and if that is a labor of love and something you're interested in, I would encourage you to continue doing that. 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh, girl, you need to be not growing herbs. And I feel differently now, actually, because in a world where it's like everything is instant gratification, like to have something that's so intentionally made is valuable now more than ever. The sourcing is tricky. I went to Japan for the first time 2 years ago, and went down to a tiny little region in the very southernmost area of Japan and to a tea farm, and that's where I'm sourcing this ocha, green tea powder. And Laura, I'm just full circle. Laura asked, like, where are you in that process? And I've been slowly just ordering like kilograms, like 10 kilograms at a time of this green tea powder and slowly selling it and getting a small following around it. Um, and now I have the funds saved to actually have like tins, like actual tins. So I'm not bagging it myself. And the tea farm will not get back to me. I don't know what's going on, but like, and I've met them, I know them, but like there's a snag in their quickness and efficiency, and it's such a like actually a good moment to pause. Is I'm like I'm ready to go. Like let's get this show on the road. It's actually a good moment with sourcing to be like, oh right, when you have a product that's coming from a single source, my business is doing as good as their business. Period. So I don't know. If that's what you were looking for, Lexi, where I'm like, keep growing your own herbs. But
It feels like there's a big gap in the industry of like how to source herbs. We're all getting them from the same place. And after Oshala Farms came and spoke, it's just like so much work and doesn't feel sustainable. And if my business grows any more than where it's at right now, which is so small, I can't grow that much. So it's just weird navigating and I want my product business to grow and I still want to have a garden. And so I just trying to figure out how to navigate it.
and I would say to that point, rather than being like, just keep doing it the hard way, I think also it's important to note, especially for herbs like astragalus or herbs that are actually trickier to grow, like there are generations in some places of herb farmers that have been doing this for generations, and we don't actually need to do that for them or pick up the slack. I think it is okay to import and use herbs that we can get at a good price and makes our business sustainable. I do that myself. And what I've found, the balance I strike for my herbal tea line specifically is that each tea has like one special herb. Tulsi from Oshala Farm, boha mint from Springwind, but not every herb. Um, Similar with eco packaging. I don't know if any of you have like put yourself, I'm sure there's some of you out there that have put yourself through the ringer of eco packaging. Yeah. Perfection. Where how do I have no plastic? And I was talking, has Rachel from Fat in the Moon come yet, Laura? Yeah. We were talking about packaging, and I was like, but you don't have plastic in your packaging. And she was like, of course I do. Of course I do. None of us are perfect. All we can do is do the best we can. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's really interesting because we're really looking at economies of scale, which is sourcing and keeping something small and authentic. This single farm issue, now you suddenly see that there's a cog that might not be working in your business when you went about it as an authentic supporting small business point of view, which is one source. Most companies have a diversification of sourcing in order for them to avoid this concern. And so you have to balance out, do I have the seasonal seasonal Oshala Farm based tea, which is only created once a year, or this as needed, limited options Ocha tea. Like you can position yourself as a brand that is seasonal and limited, and it might sell out because you don't know when you're going to get it again. And I think that's actually really honest. And I was going to share a little bit before you were talking about like you don't get back to people quickly. I think as long as you communicate really well, that you don't get back quickly, it's okay to not get back quickly. Like it's okay if you say, I only have 100 of these and I don't know when I'm going to make it them again. And so people buy them really quickly. That is appropriate. That's honest, but it also gets people to be aware that you're not just going to be around forever and make products all day long and have an inventory that lasts 9 months like any other typical brand. So it's really important to talk about limited options, seasonality, in that way, if that's the core value of what you're doing. Like right now, Erin, you're talking about Ocha as it might not always be available when people want it to be.
That's true. And I did talking about scaling the last few years. I was really focused on scale. How do I scale my herbal teas? And there was a moment where I was like, well, maybe I just have to have all imported herbs, and that's what it is. But then I realized that then that's not actually what herb folk is. So there's some soul searching in the sourcing piece for all of us.
I love that. Ami, you have a question.
Yeah, I actually wanted to extend the other question about sourcing herbs in that I thought maybe you could help. I have a hard time finding access to some more like rare
Mm.
Chinese herbs actually, and I've actually come across some what looks like really good suppliers, but they won't sell to me because I don't have like the degree or whatever you need. I don't know what they want. They want some kind of certification that I'm not messing around, but I don't have that. So I was just wondering if you have any, for some of the more, and not just, I guess herbs is loose in this, like peach gum and, things that maybe wouldn't be considered herbal but are used in Asian medicines.
Yeah. Um, the only place I source Chinese herbs from, I am not only, but the 99% of the herbs I source for Chinese herbs are from Springwind in San Leandro. They do require certification. However, everyone that's gone through my like intro to TCM class, I reached out to them and they're like, that's enough, like just to say they've gone through some sort of class. So, and Laura is connected with Springwind. So I think maybe Ami circling back with Laura about how to let Jesse and Andy know at Springwind that you're an herbalist and that you are, you have whatever credentials or trainings. And again, Laura, it's about communication. Um, I wouldn't go through anyone else unless it's something very niche that they don't have. I would go through Springwind. It's
Okay.
worth the the extra steps.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, all of our graduates have access to Springwind also, but we don't have access to the granular, so we don't, and their liquid extracts, but we can do their bulk herbs. Yeah,
Well,
because they're not licensed acupuncturists and Chinese medicine professionals. Yeah, good.
yeah.
What other questions? We have about 5 minutes left. Any
Well,
further
I
questions?
could just chime in on that last part you guys were talking about because I guess you could say I have a product line, but almost never make the same product twice. And it's because I'm just going with my flow and my pleasure. It's not, I mean, I do make money selling them, but I don't sell them in stores and I don't sell them online and I sell them to people in craft fairs and stuff. And it is really weird because I've never ever tried to do that sort of like, oh, new line dropping tonight or scarcity thing, but I am finding like if I'm gonna, I do like this one craft fair in the holidays and I'll post about it and I just will have so many people and they're like, I saw your post and I had to come stock up. And then, and also just the fact that I don't make the same thing twice and I will offer people the recipe. And that's kind of just a philosophy of mine of like, I want people to be making their own remedies as well. Like, if this really works for you, here's the recipe, make it in bulk. Like, don't pay me $1 jillion for a tiny quantity. But yeah, it's really funny to me because it's like almost had this like backwards reaction that I didn't intend, where people are now like, "Oh, can you make that again? I really loved it," or "I gave some to my friend and now they want it," and it's like, "No, it's not. There isn't any more. That was it." So it's kind of an interesting trend I feel like I see in a lot of like online influencer type people, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, obviously, if it's coming from a supply issue, with a farmer in Japan, then I'm all for it. But like, if it's like a falsely manufactured thing, I think it's a little strange as a tactic, but it works for sure.
Yeah. I think at the level, I would say for your product line as well as mine, we're probably in the same boat, right? As far as sourcing and the amount and everything I do is still a small batch. Um, and And yet, when I've done markets where I'll say I like make low cough syrup, which I don't make regularly, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're interested in this. This is all I have." And people are like, "Yup, I want it." And it's not like a manipulative thing. It's just the truth. There's something to that. And I am tickled, Ami, that you're running your business in a way that again is that's your creative like passion and keeps your curiosity um, involved in what you're doing. And I'm sure that also plays into people's interest in your products too, not just the scarcity.
Yeah, I would say definitely because it's a dreamy thing. It's like there is that magic in herbalism, and like I'm teaching a class coming up on sleep, and I was just working on that on the herbal part, and I was looking into the Ayurveda, and like a product just popped into my head, and I was like, "Oh, I cannot wait to bring this." And I haven't ever seen anything like it, and it's just that like joie de vivre kind of thing that makes it special, and so yeah, and if I lose that, I stop making stuff. I'm like, I don't want to present people with things I'm not super like excited about. So, but that I don't know that I'll ever have a formal product line. That's not necessarily my goal, but it is kind of an interesting question when it comes to like formalizing a product line. Like, how do you choose your star product, so to speak, and keep the spirit alive. Sorry, on mute. That's my.
Yeah, it it's outside of the system of capitalism that we're in, definitely outside of that, and yet so valuable.
I think it's a great way to run a business, personally. I think if your business is about story, your story is about creating products that inspire you based on whatever you're learning or what something's in season, and you may make it again or you may not, is exactly what you do. And I think as long as you keep saying that over and over again, and you're honest about it, and it's fun and it's interesting, you're telling the story of why you've made that and how much you have, that's building the business that is uniquely you. And I think, like you're saying, Erin, outside of capitalism, I like this way of looking at businesses that are conscious. It's like shareholders versus stakeholders. Shareholders are like people that own companies, and they're like the only investors in a company, and that's the only people that actually matter at the end of the day, and everyone else is minions, right? Stakeholders are, this is a Patagonia moment, right? The earth is a stakeholder for Patagonia. The employees are stakeholders. The children, they were the first people to do on-site childcare of any company ever. Like, they see their entire community as stakeholders. They all own a piece of the benefit of this company. And that, it was conscious capitalism. And I'm going to put that in quotes because I don't even know if those words should ever go together. but it's the way you can build wealth and do good in the world at the same time. And Patagonia gave 100% to a trust to support the earth. Like they are not, and they are worth billions of dollars. They weren't in it for that reason, but look at what they've been able to do in the world. And I think if we use that model as a stakeholder model, your growers are stakeholders, your customers are stakeholders, your family's a stakeholder. This is where we're building healing and love and sustainable livelihoods for everyone in the process. And if you can tell your story right, that is easier for you to do. And it's honest and it's real. And I don't think it should reduce the amount of money you can make. I really don't. I'm not convinced of that. Some of the most creative people I've seen make really good money in interesting ways because they did what made sense to them and they put their blinders on and they were like, this is the signal and that is the noise. And I'm just going to keep going to the signal. And so I just want to keep building you all up and just letting go of the how it should be and allow yourself in a deep meditation of what do I want? What do I really, really want? And how do I keep moving forward? And that's where the questions you should be asking is in that journey. How do I get what I want? I know what I don't want. You got to know what you don't want before you know what you want. And then ideally you'll get to that next stage. That's my hope, at least. And Erin, I think you're an amazing example of that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. What a way to end it on that message. And yeah, that's that kind of vibe I have at the end of our time together is that my time here was not about like how to do it, but more of just a share of this is how I'm doing it. And it's delightful that I feel like kind of maybe we're all in the same boat together, kind of similarly. Yeah.
Thank you, Erin. You're such a gift to me and to our community. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Love you. See you all soon.